Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video we'll be taking a look at one of the biggest changes that Blizzard wants to do with some of the corruptions. And this is going to be probably one of the better changes that a lot of people have been asking for. However, this massive buffs and nerfs are also going to be delayed. So let's get into some of the changes that Blizzard is going to be making, particularly to some of the strongest corruptions in the game. A couple days back, Blizzard posted a list of corruptions that they want to buff or nerf, but they weren't specific on exactly how strong the buffs or nerfs were going to be. Those changes at the time were, they wanted to reduce the effectiveness of Echoing Void significantly, that being the corruption that radiates shadow damage based on your health percentage. They also said they want to increase effectiveness of Void Ritual, one of the weaker corruptions out of the lot. And they wanted to increase the duration of Deadly Momentum so that you are actually able to maintain the buff. If you're not sure what Deadly Momentum is, it is the corruption that on critical strikes has a chance to give you crit. And it stacks up to 5 times. And the idea is, as long as you are a crit based class, you'll be able to juggle this buff and maintain it at all times. However, once it falls off, it really doesn't become nearly as good. Among those changes, Blizzard was also considering reducing the damage done by Twilight Devastation, another shadow damage corruption that is based on your health percentage, and increasing the effectiveness of some of the other corruption effects, but they didn't really have any to name. Later on, Blizzard decided to make another blue post literally a day later to announce a little bit more detailed information of what they want to do. These are actually quite big changes, and these changes have also been delayed. I'll talk about it after we talk about the changes made. Echoing Void will now have a permanent 50% damage reduction, not only for PvP but also PvE. Deadly Momentum's buff duration has been increased to 30 seconds instead of 15, so there is almost no way that the buff would ever fall off. Void Ritual stat bonus per stack has been approximately doubled at each rank. The higher the rank the corruption gives you, which means the more corruption it gives you, the more potent the effect is, which is quite a sizable buff. Surging Vitality's versatility value also has been increased by 10%. Surging Vitality being a corruption where, upon taking damage, you have a chance to increase your versatility by a hefty amount for 20 seconds. And as a final change, Avoidant now subjected to 20% less corruption at each rank. Avoidant being the corruption where you gain avoidance based on a percentage of your overall haste. Blizzard also have mentioned that since these changes are pretty major, especially with the World First Race still happening for N'Zoth, and after some of these nerfs going to be going live, they will even need to rebalance N'Zoth himself on Mythic. They are going to be pushing these changes to a little bit later. It's going to be pushed back to the Tuesday or Wednesday reset depending on your region. If you have these corruptions, you still have plenty of time to prepare. So far, these are pretty big buffs and nerfs, and I understand what Blizzard is trying to do here. They are trying to make certain weak corruptions be not as punishing, like for example losing the crit buff or avoidance, just being so much corruption on your gear, it just limits you. So you should be able to run certain secondary or tertiary stats without really that much of an issue. However, something like Echo and Void proved to be very strong. It's great on tanks, great on any class that has high amount of health. You can basically cleave everybody. It's good for AoE or single target. It's kind of like a catch-all corruption. What we haven't seen is Blizzard implementing other nerfs just yet. They did say that they want to do other corruptions that they want to adjust. So they might adjust Twilight Devastation. That one seems to be very strong, and maybe Twilight Devastation will be one of those things that people will be trying to swap out instead of Echoing Void, because Twilight Devastation is kind of like Echoing Void, but more of a burst version of it. It's kind of like a frontal of all that damage that Echoing Void could have stored up and then released over time, but instead with Twilight, as long as you aim it properly at a group of enemies or at a singular boss, and if it procs often enough, maybe with like a very high haste build, then it could be very, very powerful. It is expected that we will see even more changes to corruptions as we gain more corruption resistance. With every single week, we'll be upgrading our Cloak, and Cloak provides passive corruption resistance. So that means we'll be able to tag on even more corruption gear on our characters. And this is just us trying to figure out the best possible, the strongest possible wombo combo that we have. My guess is people are stacking Echo and Void with very low corruption, but still getting quite a bit percentage of their health, to the point where as long as you don't go over a certain number of corruption where you are hindered inside of a raid or a dungeon, tanks being a lot tankier and can take that damage a lot better, certain corruptions become very powerful in mass quantities. As we upgrade our cloaks, we'll be able to tag on more corruptions. We'll have single target and AoE focused corruption pieces, and we will have much stronger builds as we go on. So I'm expecting for buffs and nerfs to come out at a later time as we get more and more corrupted, as we get stronger and stronger and just do more absurd damage. But I guess until then, we'll just have to wait. A lot of people actually were pretty upset with Blizzard making these changes, and one of the reasons why they decided to offset these adjustments until Tuesday, Wednesday reset is because you can actually buy corruptions on the auction house. A bunch of people that were raiding decided that they wanted to get themselves a little bit closer to that cutting edge to get N'Zoth earlier than everybody else, and that means going to the auction house and buying some of these corruptions with very powerful effects. And now that we have some of these effects getting nerfed instead of maintaining their relative strength, now they're kind of becoming useless. So you dropped maybe 2, maybe 3 million gold on a piece of gear, and now Blizzard has to nerf it. But maybe certain of these corruptions are almost becoming mandatory for the raid itself. This is a fine line for Blizzard to walk, and the better they can balance it, where you don't have to have a feeling where you need certain corruptions in order to beat certain bosses or beat certain timers, then I think that's probably the best way of balancing it. If, let's say, you have a raid full of people with 0 corruption gear that are actually able to defeat all the way to Mythic N'Zoth, I feel like them balancing will be good, because in a sense corruptions are just a tag on to maybe make your experience easier. Unless you, of course, overcorrupt your character, and it can serve as a way, like a soft catch-up mechanism for everybody playing the game right now to eventually get their kill on Mythic N'Zoth, even if they are not in top 100 guilds. But that's going to be everything we have on corruptions right now. Again, all these changes are going live Tuesday, Wednesday reset, so these changes are not happening tomorrow or the day after that, but they are happening soon, so just be aware. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts about these changes, and I will see all of you guys in another video.